So we often hear the term freedom of expression, but in light of recent events involving an anti-homosexual pastor being denied entry to Jamaica, we have to ask just how free is freedom of expression? We have a balanced discussion ahead, we hope, with Attorney at Law Abel Don Foote, Public Defender, Arlene Harrison Henry, and Chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society, Dr. Wayne West. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here. This is going to be fun. Yeah. I'm going to start with you, Dr. West, because I want to hear what the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society thinks about this gentleman who was supposed to have been coming into Jamaica, the views that he espoused, and whether you agree with the ban or not.
Okay, well, we don't agree with the ban. We don't agree with the gentleman either, but we don't agree with the ban. And the reason why I walked with this paper is because I wanted to make a quote and I wanted to be sure that I justify the quote.
Which paper is that? Yeah.
And this is a quote from Judge Anthony Kennedy, United States Supreme Court judge, and he approached problems of speech in a free society this way. And he said, the remedy for speech that is false is speech that is true. This is the ordinary course in a free society. The response to the unreasoned is the rational, to the uninformed, the enlightened, to the straight-out lie, the simple truth. In other words, he's saying the way you respond to truth you disagree with or you do not like is by speech.
Is it always that easy, though? Is it really always? If it were that easy, then half of the truths, untruths, out there wouldn't be spreading like wildfire. We think about
the reality is, the
fake
Dutch
news and all the rest of it.
No, the way you counter fake news is to give it accurate news. The Dutch, for example, had a challenge in an election they had in 2006 or 2007. There was a group there were people who were advocating for pedophilia to be made normal. And they sought to ban them from participating in the election. And they went to court, and the Dutch court said, let the people speak.
Would you want that here?
The response to speech that is false.
Would you want that here?
Yes, is speech that is true.
So you would want a group to lobby here for pedophilia to be made normal, and you would agree for that to be heard?
Anything. They must be able to speak, and I would speak in return.
That is incredible to me,
That is the way I see it.
But pedophilia, I mean, you can argue homosexuality, but pedophilia?
Totalitarian states ban speech. And when people start banning speech, which speech will not be banned?
That's incredible to me. I'm shocked that I'm shocked at that position, I must say. All right, let me ask. Go ahead. Let me ask.
Mr. Foote, do you agree that he should have been banned?
Well, from the country, that's one issue. But legally speaking, the highest form of legal authority in Jamaica is the Constitution, and essentially what it affords for in Section 13(3)(c) is the right for freedom of expression. Based on my understanding of what he is about and what he has said so far, I don't see necessarily any great exception that should be taken from his statements, because indeed he is somewhat justified by traditional principles. The Bible in Leviticus spoke on issues similar to what he is treating with. Essentially, it indicates that if a man shall lie with a man, like how he lies with a woman, he shall die by the blood. Words to that effect. But what I'm saying is that he's taking perhaps a radical approach to it, but I don't think he should be gagged or muzzled.
Should he have been banned from coming to Jamaica?
Not at all. He should be
Before you, Jimmy, is it okay if we walk around with swords and cut each other's ear off or stick?
No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all.
So is this then not a matter of interpretation? Yes, you say he's radicalizing, but you agree with stoning gay people, and the post-nightclub thing was great and it ought to have happened because everybody in there was homosexual. Is this not a matter of interpretation and how far you go?
All right. So what I'm saying is this. The Constitution affords for certain rights and privileges, but it also has a proviso and a rider, which indicates that your rights are limited and it ought not to prejudice the rights of others.
I hear you.
So you're not allowed to walk around and assault people,
So are you suggesting that our Constitution says that he shouldn't have been banned? Are you saying it's the Constitution that says that he shouldn't have been banned?
I am saying that the Constitution affords for his, what do you call it?
His
viral expressions. He's making some very radical
So the Constitution would suggest that he should not have been banned?
On a liberal interpretation, yes, it suggests that.
Okay, all right. So if the
banned.
Constitution says he shouldn't have been banned and we ban him, what happened? Who would be taken to task for that?
It's entirely a matter for him whether or not he wants to pursue it, right?
But we wouldn't
Does he
been
have
the
a
first
legal
country.
right to pursue it?
Well, he can pursue it, but in order to pursue it, he'd have to be physically in
I know,
the
but does he have a legal right to pursue
There
it?
would be some basis.
Okay.
There would
Ms.
be some
Arlene, you
basis.
think he should have been banned?
I want to look at the conversation in a very broad context.
Fair
and
enough.
I think the human rights position has to be that all views should contend. All views should contend.
I hear about coming.
Having said that,
Okay.
a sovereign state, as Jamaica is entitled to look at the circumstances of this gentleman and make a determination as to whether or not in the public interest, where there are issues of terrorism, where there are issues of the potential for breach of the public peace, as a sovereign state, the PICA would have the right to say no. And let us look at other situations where persons have been banned from other countries. And I'm not saying that they are necessarily on all fours, but when we had the Ebola outbreak, some countries properly, in their opinion, said persons coming from X, Y, and Z countries will not enter in their jurisdiction.
I can hear some people saying, no, why is Miss Eileen talking about Ebola? What that have to do?
Yes, that's why I say it was
Right.
not on all
Right.
fours. But also in more recent times, in light of the state in Jamaica, countries, properly speaking, in their autonomy, have issued travel bans and warnings against persons from their jurisdiction coming to Jamaica. So the point I make is, much of the ban of this gentleman has not been made public to us. We saw a note that says that
It's not
been
conducive.
banned due to certain...
Not conducive to the current climate in
not
Jamaica.
conducive to the current climate in Jamaica. So what is the current climate in Jamaica? The current climate in Jamaica is that we have a breakdown of law and order across the country. Question is, and perhaps this was a consideration of the administration and PICA, is whether or not we would have had the resources to deal with any public disturbance as a result of the viral. Because this man doesn't even like women, as I understand it. And I have to say,
Yes.
I take a personal
They shouldn't
objection
serve.
to
They
that.
shouldn't serve in certain. They shouldn't work.
They are
to,
keepers of homes and
yes,
so on.
Correct.
So I think that though the human rights position is and has to be that all views should contend,
yes.
we have to look at the specific cases. I can say personally, I would be a hypocrite if I said I'm very happy that he's not here. As to whether or not he ought to be banned is a
I
different
understand,
matter.
but we talk about freedom of speech, Abel. I hear you mention that. But with freedom of speech comes responsibility. And that's the part we
Absolutely.
always seem to forget, I find.
Right.
So if you have somebody who is inciting hate, violence even, murder for homosexuals, they should die. Is this the kind of person that you want to be coming to Jamaica to travel the island to talk about? And again, I think it's an interpretation of the Bible, but that's my own view. Were they right to say that this gentleman coming in now is not conducive to what's going on in Jamaica at this time?
So the judgment call is not for him. It is entirely for the Creator, right? So for one to say that he, he's to take it on himself to invoke a particular form of punishment, that's certainly not within his purview.
But that's what he does.
Well,
So
you see that's
within that context,
yes. Within that context, that's why I'm saying whatever his views are, however radical they may be, he ought not to pass a certain line. There is a line which indicates that you have rights, I have rights. He can't just go around breaching laws, stoning, assaulting persons, right? That would be
or advocating for that.
would be an illegal act, right? But if he were to express a particular dislike for a particular set of persons, I don't see him being faulted for that.
Dr. Wayne, I heard what you said earlier. Why do you think he was banned?
Because we are in a particular moment where the LGBT political movement, and see, the gay rights movement have transformed from a gay rights movement into a cultural Marxist political movement. And Marxist movements, we knew of communism, they are hostile to free speech. All Marxist movements are hostile to free speech, and the LGBT political movement, which is a cultural Marxist movement, it's not about economy, it's about culture, is hostile to freedom of speech. They are seeking to ban...
Hostile to freedom of speech?
Full stop. They are seeking to ban Franklin Graham from going to the United Kingdom. They have already started a petition about it. He hasn't said anything about stoning persons. And one of the reasons
What has he said?
One of the reasons why freedom of speech is important is because on this program today, we are being told that this gentleman, who again I don't agree with, said you should murder gay people. He didn't say that. What he was seeking to say is that the laws of the land should have the death penalty for homosexuality. That's a whole different thing from murdering people. So you have May I speak? You
yes,
have misinformation being given, even about this gentleman, as crazy as he is. Persons are given misinformation that he is seeking to murder people.
So let me ask you,
He is
Dr.
not
West,
seeking to murder anybody. He is saying that just as the law of the land for murder is the death penalty, the law for homosexuality should be death penalty. No, I disagree with that.
Okay, that's
but we should at least say what he said. And that's why freedom of speech is of fundamental importance.
So hold on, let me ask you another question. So you think this is about a homosexual agenda? And this is about LGBT.
I am absolutely sure it is.
So is
the group that sought to ban, and this is a constant feature of this cultural Marxist LGBT group. In America, a woman by the name of Crystal Dixon, who worked at the University of Toledo, merely wrote a piece saying she didn't think the gay rights movement was the same as the black civil rights movement. She was fired. Kevin Cochran, a guy who was the fire chief of Atlanta, he wrote a book saying that homosexuality and fornication are wrong. He was fired. This is a constant feature of the LGBT political...
Not wanting freedom of speech and not wanting someone to say, I don't like homosexuals. Is it the same thing?
But it's not... But also...
I'm asking.
They do not want you to oppose them in any way.
But what about his views on women? That didn't play in, you don't think? So this is about a feminism movement as well?
Where he has been banned, as far as I know,
yes.
the people who moved against him, like this person, J. John in Jamaica, is somebody who is from the LGBT part of the spectrum.
But he wasn't the only person.
Let us not fool ourselves.
No.
The LGBT political movement is anti-speech against them.
But anti-speech against them and not liking freedom of expression is two different things.
They may like you to speak about other people, but if you speak about them, you would... Professor Bain suffer the same consequence.
Go ahead.
I can't speak directly to the several examples raised by my friend. But I think we have to remember when we're talking about banning, many of our own reggae artists have been banned from other countries by virtue of their messages. So it demonstrates that a country can say, in the interest of our people, in the interest of our democracy, we don't want you here. I don't know that the LGBT community is Marxist, or culturally Marxist. I don't know, and I would love if you could share that information with me, because my understanding of Marxism is that it goes to the root of how a capitalist economy is organized and how the ownership of wealth is distributed and so on. So I don't know. What I can say, and I think this has to be the position of us as a country, is that all views must be allowed to contend in an environment of respect, in an environment of the observance of the law, and so on.
Well, let me ask you the same question I asked Sir Wayne. Why was he banned?
I think he was banned because I don't have the inside information.
This is your opinion.
My opinion is that the environment in which we operate, and I haven't just come out of Montego Bay, and I have just seen all of what is happening in Montego Bay. I don't know if the security forces would have had the capacity were there to be any disturbance arising out of any of his wicked messages, because that is what they are, you know, to stone people or to suggest that we're to stone people and so on. And therefore, when we talk about freedom of expression, which Jamaicans have enjoyed in the most unfettered manner, this is one of the foundations of our democracy.
In terms of rankings, we're up there.
Yeah, we're up there.
Above the US.
We're up there above the US.
Above the US.
We are recognized and respected for that. But that freedom of expression must be done in the context of civility and in the context of the recognition of other democratic rights.
You know what usually is interesting to me, how we find agendas when things like this happen. And I just want a reaction from Abel Dawn and from you, Mrs. Harrison Henry, about what Doc said about pedophiles. Because it rings very disturbingly to me.
Yes.
I believe in people having rights, I understand that. But to hear the chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society say that if they were to try and contend publicly on a national scale, on a lobby
Speech.
for...
Anyone who wants to speech and advocate for something.
Does that rub anybody else the wrong way? Able to understand, or is that freedom of speech again? And would that be, and if we were to rise up about that, would that be the pedophile lobby having an agenda?
So it's a very sensitive topic, right? And by virtue of its very nature, one would have to look at the question of reasonableness, right? That's ultimately a question that you have to contend with in law. Would it be reasonable to put out a message like that? That is the question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
My personal view, I don't think so. I don't necessarily think so. But in the same breath, right, one can express their views. But whether or not you agree with it is a total different thing.
Give them a platform, Mrs. Harrison Henry.
I certainly would not encourage that. You see, the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, right, represents a whole philosophy as to the kind of people we are, who we are, and we certainly don't support that. We certainly don't support that. It would take us back hundreds of years.
To play devil's advocate,
Yes.
and I don't know if this is what Sir Don is trying to say, but do we now choose what is freedom of speech and what isn't?
And that's precisely what's happening.
Responsibility.
No, I'm asking, Miss Harry.
Responsibility. Pedophilia does not
No, as I said, I'm not supporting anyone here, but do we decide what is freedom of speech and what isn't?
To protect the people who can't protect themselves, the kids are kids.
We have a responsibility, not only legally, but morally, to ensure that messages that go out are messages that are wholesome, that can lead to the ultimate education and upliftment of our people.
Okay.
Our ad on RGR speaks about rights, but responsibilities that go with it.
Final question, Dr. Wayne. What's the role of your group, the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society?
Well,
what's the overall role?
The overall role is to advocate for the Judeo-Christian worldview in public affairs. And this is why speech is important, because we are fully aware that, Ms. Alison Henry was saying that she wasn't aware that there was a cultural aspect to Marxism. There is.
No, not cultural aspect to Marxism. Cultural, that the LGBT community had adopted a Marxist cultural approach. Two different things.
Yeah.
Marxism really, as Karl Marx started with the economics, and he sought to arrange the society in terms of economics. Other persons who took that trajectory following the same Marxist tradition, sought to rearrange the society in terms of culture. Groups like the third wave feminism and the LGBT group fall under cultural Marxism ideas.
Third wave feminism.
They are hostile
Which group is the third wave feminism?
We can come to that. They are hostile to freedom of speech.
Doc, I'm asking you to clarify before. Just
third wave feminism are the present time who wish to deconstruct things like marriage and gender. In other words, there must be no marriage because of patriarchy. There must be no gender. There must be no male or female. That's third-wave feminism. Okay. It's important that people understand these concepts. And one of the fundamental concepts that these people use are human rights. And that's why Jamaica, there's a planned Human Rights Institute for Jamaica. And one of the things that it will be doing is the same trajectory that we see in other countries.
We have to go. We have to go.
That's not true.
Unfortunately, we have to go.
Suppressing
What we
freedom
would
of
like
speech.
to know is who invited this gentleman to Jamaica.
Unfortunately,
That is what we would
and I
like
heard
to
an
know.
interview with him and he wouldn't say.
yeah, we have to go.
That's
We have to
true.
go.
Okay. Who
Thank you so
invited
much for
him
You're
here?
welcome. You're welcome.
We could
We
continue
would
this.
want to know who wanted him to
I
come.
wanted to know. I wanted to
He
know.
his own. He went to Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago on his own as well. Yeah.
Attorney at law Abel Dunfoot in the middle, public defender Arlene Harrison Henry, I don't need to tell you who she is, and chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society, Dr. Wayne West. By the way, this is Smile Jamaica.
Sometimes you have moments like this.
But sometimes we have to deal with stuff like that. But it is still
Debate is
Smile
healthy.
Jamaica, it's
Yes.
morning time.
All right, folks. How relevant is Black History Month in Jamaica? We're going to share the importance after the break. Wow.